Thank you, everybody, for letting me speak tonight. Tonight's subject is going to be a little bit touchy with some people. But how many times have you seen mass shootings and a big, making of mass shootings and single victim shootings among all the politicians of today? They always claim that there needs to be stricter gun laws because that would help keep them out of the hands of criminals. The truth is, though, that only 7% of all guns are purchased in retail stores. The rest are purchased otherwise. So, this being the driving force, this little 7%, would it really make any impact in the sense of gun violence in America? Well, the answer to that we're going to try to address tonight. First, let's start off with what the opposition says. They say that stricter gun laws on gun purchases and concealed carry will reduce crime in America. They say stricter background checks is needed, along with assault weapons ban, and closing the gun show loopholes that allows people to purchase guns. They say this is going to prevent incompetent people from owning them. They also say that strengthening gun control will reduce violence. Passing assault weapons ban in 1992 increased prosecution for such gun offenses, which dropped violence roughly 35%. They say more needed is though. They say there needs to be a mandatory child safety lock. Impractical for home active shooter, but that's what they say. They say ID and background checks, along with gun safety tests, needs to be done as well. They also say that more prosecutors for these charges needs to be put in place. But let's look at the reality of what they're saying. The reality of gun control is the fact that when people carry, it reduces crime. Why is this? Well, number one, people are more observant that carry. Why? When you're carrying a gun on your hip, you have to be mindful of everybody around you because you're responsible for that firearm. If someone should take that firearm out and shoot somebody, you're responsible because you do not protect it. You do not keep it close by. People who also carry firearms are more careful. Why is that? Well, think about it. You're carrying a gun which can harm someone. So naturally, you're going to have to be careful and mindful of police officers as well in traffic stops and otherwise. So you're going to be more careful to avoid those situations. But another reason why they're good too is because you can use them to protect your family, yourself, and other people from violent threats, which is a very good thing to be able to do. So let's go to the claims as far as all the claims that they say they'll stop violence. The the Department of Justice did a study back in 2016 on this with inmates from federal and state prisons, and here's what they found. They found that out of the inmates they talked to, less than 13% used a firearm. Out of those 13%, only less than 7% of them actually got those from a retail store. So that means that none of them really bought from a retail store for the most part. So where did they obtain them? 56% were taken illegally. Less likely to be linked and it's more accessible, made the reasons as to why. 6% of those were stolen, which means that it was easier if they didn't have to worry about it being linked. Out of those, 7% was taken from another crime, which means that they didn't have to worry about that. It fell back on the first person. And then 43% was taken from the black market, untraceable because of the fact of it being the black market. Along with that, 25% was either from family or a gift. And as I said before, only 7% from retail. Other facts that's interesting is the fact that 21% of the state imprisoned, and 20% of the federal ones that were in prison possessed a firearm during the time that they committed their crime. 79% of inmates in state prisons and 80% of those in federal prisons didn't even own a gun. So you move on to the fact of how there were gains as far as they mentioned gun shows. Only 0.8% got theirs from a gun show. Out of those incidents where they had a firearm, 27% were killed, 12% injured, 7% fired with no injury, and 54% didn't even fire it at all. So what should we take away from this? Background checks are already instituted as it is. And gun safety courses are useless because, number one, the people who obtain them illegally wouldn't even be identified. They wouldn't even be taking part in either or. So it would be useless. Number one, also to put all these things in practice would increase the budget. Gun show loopholes is really not even an issue because so very little of them purchase their firearms from gun shows anyways. When you have less than 1% purchasing from gun shows, what does it really matter? It's senseless and useless. Plus, Congress has been split on this situation forever. Even Bush couldn't get it done. And plus, you cannot stop them from getting their firearms the way that they're getting their firearms. It's impossible. You cannot police their family and their friends. And we also know right now it's almost impossible to police the black market. If that was the case, they wouldn't be able to obtain them anyways. So, as in going back to over the points made, stricter gun laws as presented by the other side is completely, utterly useless because it doesn't accomplish anything. The 4 reasons why a person should carry makes it to where society is more watchful and more mindful of what's going on around them. And the truth about the gun laws is, as if was mentioned before, it's completely senseless. So I'd like to, I can't really relate to things, but I'd like to thank y'all for tonight.